forward. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tammy. I'm the executive director at Fair Idaho. We are this tiny little robust nonprofit that's helping bring this forward. Part of our mission is to bring producers to market. And in doing that, we are an advocacy organization. We help put together policy and local initiatives that help our producers in the food system. We help with education and we help connect everyone all together because, like Marie and I were just talking about, Lord knows I don't have all the answers. Not a single one of us here has all the answers, but we sure as heck can connect you with somebody who may have the answers. And if there isn't someone that has the answer, that's honestly even more exciting because then we could do roundtables like this and hopefully find the answers together. Still people are filtering in, but we can get rolling to the meat of this. It's my hope that we can have collaboration like this often because problems are so nuanced across the valleys that not one region has a perfect model that can be rolled out across all of Idaho, unfortunately, because it would be so nice if that would be the case. It would be really nice if I could have this like little playbook that just said, you know, these are the 5 initiatives you need. You roll them out in region 1 through 3, and then 4 through 6 get this, and we had a magical solution. So maybe we hear one today, but if not, that's why everyone here is going to be a Fair Idaho member, because we're here working on the solutions or the problems, either way you want to look at it. There's going to be a lot of diversity in here. I can tell you, I can see from the faces that are showing to me, I can see Colette DePhelps from the University of Idaho. I can see we have producers, we have processors, we have grant managers. We have ISDA, who does not have their camera going yet. Laura, I'm calling you out for a quick second. We have lots of people here that can help. So as questions come up in the Q&A section, I will ask that all of you respect the time of people that are asking the questions and keep your microphones on mute. But we'll get to the questions if you raise your hand or if you ask a question in the chat. I promise everyone will be able to ask their question. And then it will probably be a little bit of a group answer session so we can get to some solutions here without any one person needing to be the expert in the room. Of course, we've gathered those that I've met in this quick journey. I started in May at Fair, and I've met almost all of you in person that are on this call. And I find each and every single one of you guys to have a piece of the food system problem solution. That was a whole like mouth word solution, but I think you guys are all pieces of the puzzle here on how we help get producers to market, how we help build a robust local economy in Idaho, and how we help get all of our producers to market, support our local restaurants, support our local beverage producers, and make sure that this is a robust local food system. I will ask, just as we go forward, for everyone's to respect everyone. We keep everyone on mute if you're not the one speaking. We'll move through these panels pretty quickly. This is really just a taste of the problems and the solutions as they've come up, and certainly since I started. I again can't know it all. I'm sure you all have other questions. So when we get to the Q&A section, if we've moved through some of these sessions more quickly than anticipated, there will be more time for Q&A. And we can always stay after. I'm not going to kick you guys off exactly at noon. So as we're going to move forward, I just want to remind everyone that the agenda is in the chat for those of you that have come in just a tiny bit later than everyone else. Agenda is in the chat. Please be on mute as we move forward out of respect for everyone's time if you're not the one speaking. Go ahead and ask questions in the chat or save them for the Q&A. You can take notes and ask them at the Q&A. There'll be plenty of time for you guys to ask questions. And without further ado, we can go ahead and get started so I can stop talking because you guys are gonna, yay, we had one more panelist show up. You guys are gonna get really sick of me. I'm gonna mute myself as well. I'll follow all the rules just as you guys will, and let the panelists do their thing because they are, for today, the experts in the room. So I'm going to introduce to you really quickly Marie and Amber, and then I'll mute, and I will not come back on until it's time for me to introduce Tobe and Matt. Marie is from the SBDC. She is, honestly, Marie, I've known you for a couple years now. You're just all around good human being, but a pit bull in the world of business support and economic development. I've owned my own business before. I know how difficult it is to be a business owner and an entrepreneur. And had I known Marie was there, had I known the SBDC was there to help support small businesses, I would have had a much better business than I did, for sure. Amber is from the Boise Farmers Market, also another human being that I quite admire. She is the go-to, certainly in the Treasure Valley, if you have any questions about how to get your produce to market. And again, great in small business support and all the things farmers markets. So I'll shut up. Marie, I'll let you go ahead and start since you guys figured out you guys would start. Amber, don't forget to take yourself off mute for when you're ready to talk. And I'm muting myself. Thanks, you guys, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll sit back and relax for this conversation.
Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, great. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I grew up on a farm in the Central Valley of California, and I know people cringe sometimes, but you know what? It's a great way to grow up and it's a great lifestyle. So I appreciate everything that all of you do because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about the food system. And so thank you for allowing me to visit. Now, I have 10 quick minutes. So if you have questions, I will stay on till the end. What I want to let you know, many of you may or may not know about the Small Business Development Center. So quickly, we are a no-cost service to each and every one of you. And our goal is to accelerate business success. So wherever you are in your journey, we can help, and we do it through one-on-one consulting. We touch all 44 counties. I happen to be in Region 3. However, we have an SBDC in your region, I promise you, and you can reach out at idahosbdc.org. That's my simple little plug because I cannot talk about everything she wanted me to discuss today, but what I'm excited that we actually had an agenda switch, because what's going to happen is I'm going to really just tee this up, and then everyone else is going to talk about some of the things that you can do. But one of the things I was thinking about as we were talking about this is there's kind of three things, and it's really, what is your brand? You know, we talk about what it is that you're bringing to the marketplace that people want. And we know that people really want a food system that they can trust. And what does that look like? So what I want you to think about with your business is we're going to talk about branding, and then I'm going to go into a couple different things. I have a timer on, so I make sure, Tammy, that I don't go over. I'm making sure that that's working and on and all that stuff. So there we go. Anyway, the key thing that I want you to practice on is being authentic and transparent. What is your story? The stories matter because that's what people are buying into in today's world. People really want to know where their food is coming from. And your story about how you produce it matters. It matters to the restaurant growers where the restaurateurs are buying their food. So start thinking about that brand. And really what I like to tell people, sometimes people talk about pitch, and I don't like that word. It doesn't sound authentic to me. It's, what is your 30-second story? What is that thing? I'm so-and-so. You know, our farm has developed X to help with X for this particular population, and you can find us at X. I mean, I realize that's really fast, and we can certainly help you walk through that. But when people know your truth, they want to support you. Now, and I see it time and time again. I've been on a Main Street committee. I have known Tammy for a long time. we are out there really promoting businesses, not just food system businesses, but we're pretty much industry agnostic, but people are willing to pay for business products from businesses that they know and trust. So make sure that your story is authentic and transparent. Can develop a consistent brand identity so that when people see you at the market, in the grocer, or on the menu, they know your story. It's really important. And really talk about how you do the work. Now, I know social media is out there, and I'm sure all of you love it, but that helps you tell your story. It shows you planting the seeds. It shows you cultivating the crops. It shows you harvesting. It shows your workers. It shows maybe your family. What does that look like? And I know there's several food or farm to market people that I follow, and they're showing, their family out there feeding, the livestock, or hoeing the field, or doing certain things that makes me feel good, because it brings me back to my roots, but B, that's who I want to support. And those are the things that can help you when you have a brand, it's identifiable. And then we talk about, okay, what does that look like? You're educating your audience why it's important to have the sustainable food system here in Idaho, why that matters. You can leverage social media to make that happen. And I don't know if you're like me, social media is not my expertise. It's not something I enjoy, but it may be worth looking at your numbers to see if it's worth the investment to have someone who's great at it to take some pictures and help them tell your story. Participate in local events. What I know about this, Tammy and I know each other because we're connectors. We're at different things. We're helping entrepreneurs in their space and the economy. So what does that look like? Because then it's, who do you know? Who do I know that can, maybe open you up to this market? So start connecting with people, because those are where the conversations really happen. They're not at a formal setting like this, to be candid. They're at the market when you stepped out to get a drink of lemonade. There when you see somebody and say, hey, I've been thinking about you. But when you know your brand and you know what you stand for, that's when you can really shine. And really collaborate. If you are, in the food system from the field, collaborate with chefs. And I know some of you do that. Have some sort of, you have your big event coming up in February, I think, right? That's where you connect with people and have an opportunity to really make that happen. And make sure that your online presence represents your brand and it's authentic, because people these days, that's where they go first. They look, do you have a presence online? What does that presence say about you? And every single thing from start to finish, your packaging, your pictures, your product, all have to be authentic and transparent, and give the message that you want about your brand, because that's where you create trust. And people are willing to buy products from people they know and trust. And so there's a lot more I could say, but there's some incredible tidbits that you're going to get today. And I am just going to encourage you, if you have questions, please reach out to the Idaho SBDC. We are here to help. It's one-on-one consulting. We don't know everything. We don't pretend, but we know people who do, and we can connect you. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Amber. Amber, you're on.
Well, you weren't lying. You really did tee me up. So I appreciate that, because really what the market does offer is sort of the physical space and the working environment to make those ideas come to fruition. I think first and foremost, in connecting with consumers, we're really creating that sense of belonging and community. I just looked at the results of our what we call an RMA, a rapid market assessment, and we asked people, of all the values that we espouse, what are the most important to you? And the top two were community and sustainability. And if that doesn't say exactly why everyone is here right now, I don't know what could better do that. So really people are coming to market knowing that they want that sense of belonging. They want that predictable experience every Saturday. So we offer that. There's one place you can go to do the bulk of your food shopping, and we are the trusted brand that is the umbrella for all the other trusted brands that are there. So to Marie's point, when you're telling your story well, and we're shining an extra light on those stories, so we're another avenue for you to and platform for you to tell those stories in real time, but also through our social media, our newsletter, and things like that as well. And so really it's those shared values that solidify that shared predictable experience weekly. I believe what the market offers, and I'm stealing this from Janie Burns, a longtime vendor and rancher, and it's the consistency that we offer, but also the curiosity. So they want what your trusted product is. They know you do. If we're talking Purple Sage Farms, I know I can get those herbs there. I know I can get my lamb. I know what I'm going to get, but also it creates that sense of like, I can be curious with you. So when a new collaboration happens, or trying a new bringing new produce that isn't typically what you do, it is creating that sense of curiosity, and so they will grow with you. And so Janie had said what she's noticed most in the past 12, 13 years is just the savvy of customers. So you're dealing with a highly intelligent customer base. So if you know your story well, you know what you're offering, you know what you're bringing, they can talk to you because you are the producer, you are the ones making it. And frankly, you can't get that at the checkout stands at most local, I won't call anybody out, most local grocery stores. Even if they are espousing local, you're not talking to the person who made it right there. Really what we also talk about is sort of those, with the farmers market, what we offer is that collaboration. We are a convening space of people that do very, very different things. So while we're agriculturally focused, each farmer and rancher is perfecting something. And then we also have our artisans who are using local ingredients as part of again, what our values are, and what we, our guidelines state is you have to be using those local products. So again, it's creating that trust within there. And then there's those reciprocal relationships that grow from that, whether it's getting with salsa matcha, getting all your local ingredients, and now a farmer has a predictable income. You're purchasing from them, but it's within the market, and it's literally incubating all of these small businesses. And that's what we are, as an incubator of small businesses. As far as the visibility, because it's putting that sense of belonging, because it's a community event, we talk about it being like, it's so easy. Just this little city pops up and then it goes away every week. And we have an average of 4,500 shoppers that are coming through in 4 hours. And there's not many stores that can give you that guarantee week in and week out to have that. So again, that predictability and the visibility that comes from that. Because we've done that, we have grown our community partnerships. And so again, convening and collaborating becomes a huge part of that. So if part of our shared values, if sustainability is high, we're going to have groups that can come in and be a community booth and talk about those things. So University of Idaho has come in, Citizens Climate Lobby of Boise has come in, different organizations that can then, kind of talk about where some of those other values can go into policy making and different things. I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about what we're doing as a farmers market in particular is, of course, everybody knows we've been at a space for several years, but we've moved. I think we're on our third move, maybe fourth move. And so we are looking to have a permanent home and have that permanency. So we are working with the Idaho Botanical Gardens to do that. And so again, what that does is just create another level of that we're going to be there to stay. We've proven that no matter what, if we have to move, we'll still be the same community, and that those loyal shoppers move with us, but it'll be great to have that permanent home. Of course, what we, again, in particular, and many farmers markets are following suit with this, is creating additional markets. So we have the Saturday walk-through market, but we also have the drive-through market. And that is really at the one of the foremost values that we have is accessibility. And so making sure accessibility means many things, whether people, because of anxiety or just physical limitations, can't come to market, we make sure that they can come through with their vehicle and pick those things up. Additionally, we have our mobile market as well, so that there's 3 markets that our vendors can participate in. And the mobile market is actually physically going out into the communities, to areas of need, food deserts as well. And again, we have expanded that by partnering with the City of Good, so that, again, as we talk about food systems and our food insecure, that we're able to bring food to folks at a either reduced or free cost through this partnership. And it's not just any food, it's good, high quality, nutrient dense food that's local, that isn't traveling a long distance, and can go to those folks, again, in particular, that are in need. I think I could also go on and on, but that is really the crux about who we are, is a convening space, a sense of belonging, a sense of a trusted umbrella brand for many other trusted brands, and being an incubator for anyone who's starting new. We have people that have been there for many years, and then people that are just brand new starting. And really what it is a sense that you can go to other vendors and learn directly about how they've done those things. So thank you. Thank you for the time and opportunity, Tammy.
No, thank you both, Amber and Marie. I think this was the perfect beginning. You're right, Marie. I think this was such a good, happy accident that this had to change really quickly. Because I feel like if we're looking at a playbook for new producers looking to either start their farm or take their farm to the next step and get to market, that you two are like 1 and 2 in this step of getting your produce to market. If you're starting a business, you need to go to your local SBDC, regardless of where you're at in the state. There will be someone there that can help you. They can help you with a business plan. Maria, I'll never get all of this correct. A business plan, marketing, giving you the tools you need to be able to run your business correctly, so you don't make terrible mistakes down the line when you didn't know what you didn't know. And then step 2 is going to your farmers market and getting stuff to the public through what I love what you called it, a space for community and a space for curiosity. I loved that so much. I think if there's at all things that I've learned since taking on this role, and I mean, I've been around here in the Treasure Valley for quite some time. Many of these people have known me from other roles. I think one of the themes that stretches across all the sectors in every single role that you could hold, and every single sector that you could be working within, is that we all require community. And if anything made that more obvious, it was 2020. So now, thank you both again, Amber and Marie. I greatly appreciate both of you. Amber, I know you have to pop off, but Marie will stay around for the Q&A session. Next up is distribution and logistics, overcoming the challenges. This could be a very, very, very long conversation. Unfortunately, we only had a little bit of time. So 20 minutes again for each panel. And on this panel is going to be one of our board members, Tobe from Happy Day. Tobe, I couldn't kill this intro for you, but Tobe has a aspiring food hub. He has a warehouse where he's housing local food so that he can help get it out to consumers, and a restaurant owner. So Tobe seems the perfect person for this conversation because he understands the logistics from getting produce to market, as well as what it looks like to be in the distribution realm. And then Matt from Charlie's Produce, obviously Charlie's is a distribution organization. So Matt is the perfect person to talk about what it looks like to get your food into a larger distributor. So Matt, Tobe, it does not have to be very formal. Like, you guys don't have to take turns. You guys can work off of each other, whatever feels best for the two of you. Matt, you just have to take yourself off of mute in order to do it. And then we are good to go for you guys to have your conversation. I'll jump in whenever you guys are done. You have until 10:50.
Okay, maybe just a little bit about how we got started. We have 14 restaurants in the Lewiston, Moscow, and we're right on the border. Lewiston's right on the border with Clarkson, Washington. So we employ about 550 people in this market. And coming out of 2021, I think, you know, we could see the writing on the wall that supply chain was going to be an issue. So we started, well, we built a large freezer. We significantly increased our inventories. And, but one of the things that we noticed was there is no distribution in our market that does not come from the cities. And for the great growing region that we are in the middle of, all of our ingredients go somewhere else. So we started just asking the question of what would we need? How could we localize? And I would just say, you know, there's so many miracles in the journey that it's hard to keep me in 10 minutes. So I will save those stories for another time. But basically we ended up buying a 24,000 square foot facility. We are processing our own beef. We will probably become a USDA butcher by January. Our next step will be a USDA slaughter that we're trying to partner with a local rancher with. We bought a Costco-sized bakery so that we could bake our own goods and source our own. We want to focus on regenerative farming, you know, and just creating pipeline for those people trying to come onto market. And then we just saw the need for receiving. So as a local place that we could just put out, hey, we will receive your goods. We'll emphasize fair pricing so that there's sustainability all the way through the pipeline. But with that, we've already done a lot of the modeling where you can buy our restaurants are buying directly from the warehouse online. It's real-time inventory. We have a delivery system that delivers it, but our end goal is to, you know, people say, well, will you deliver to other restaurants? And I go, well, I will if they want to buy from me. Right now I'm their largest competitor. So we kind of have to even, you know, just bring assurance to the market that we're not here to squeeze the market. We're here to free the market. And we see our restaurants as kind of a beginning pipeline that gave us permission to do this. So we will also be growing our leafy greens. We bought a bunch of aeroponic towers inside our warehouse. So I've got about 75 of those. And from kind of seedling to harvest is 4 to 5 weeks indoor growing. So anyway, that's kind of our story. And we give a ton of tours. We're always looking for that next conversation to bring somebody in and show them, tell them the story, invite them, give them courage to do, because we have a large economy that we can switch from outside the market to local. So that's my story.
I guess I can jump in, give a little bit of my background as well. So worked in the valley for gosh, almost 17, 18 years. used to work for Dave Crick and have been involved with local ag for most of that time. Coming over to Charlie's and has really given me an opportunity to understand how our food system works. So there's a lot of just realities that you accept. And I'll talk just about a couple of those to frame like what's going to help a grower in this market be successful. And if I say something that everybody knows already, I apologize. But the vast majority of our produce comes from essentially two spots in our hemisphere, Central California and Mexico. We're in the middle of a transition right now where our summer is obviously ended. We're going into winter, so everything moves down into Mexico and those growing regions. So somewhat obviously the opportunity is really during our growing season in those windows, a growing window in April, May till to right about now, honestly, depending on what you're growing and what kind of storage capabilities you have. So I frame that because we're like competing against a juggernaut of growers that have spent decades and decades building up this food system that's predicated on a number of growing practices and transportation practices that we've just become accustomed to, and it's why we have, generally speaking, cheap food at in our grocery stores. So going up against that, I think it's been, I think for me, coming from wanting to really make a difference on a small level, and now seeing the bigger picture for what it is. I really believe that the way that you get into market is with scale. It's like playing the game, because we're never going to make, none of us are ever going to make very much off of one case of product, right? It's the pallets of product that really that start to make things pencil. And so I guess what I want to impress upon the group here is if you're at an inflection point in your business where you feel like, well, I've maxed out what I can do at the farmers market, or I go direct to these restaurants, and I feel like I want to take that next step. Well, you just gotta grow more. We've gone into so many relationships with farmers that the scale isn't there, and so like they're not happy and we're not happy ultimately because we can't quite make it all pencil. So that's I think just a reality that I've come to, that the system itself is built on scale. There's fixed costs, and transportation is probably one of the biggest ones. Maybe I should have started with that. Like Charlie's is a transportation company. We just happen to be transporting fruits and vegetables for the most part. And our history is like many produce companies. Guys in a truck had produce from a farm and they brought it into town and sold it to a restaurant, and it's grown from there. And we're at a place now where that still rings true, just on a large scale, and our ability to be competitive locally is really that freight piece. I think people bristle at what the market dictates should be, how much a case of something could cost, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel there, where just from a economic standpoint, being able to grow something here and not have the input cost of transportation, that's a little bit of a game changer and can really make things pencil a little bit better. So I wanted to walk into this conversation being a little bit real about what the challenges are, because like Tim Sommer's on the call and he sells to us, and that's been I've known Tim for a long time, and it's generally been a good relationship, but they would love for us to sell more basil, right? And we would love to sell more. And there's a little bit of a always back and forth of like what's going to make the farm be successful and what's going to make the distributor be successful. I just talked to Ryan from Sun Valley Mustard and had that same conversation. Like, it only works if we move boxes. because that's how the system works. We don't need to make a lot over every box, but if we can sell a lot of boxes, then all of a sudden that incremental cost of the labor and transportation really starts to decrease. So walking away from this, I would say scale. Don't get big, but really think about how can I make this work in my business model to, I'm just going to throw out some numbers. I'm currently at 10 acres. Well, with 20 acres, if I put these inputs in and I could sell this much to a Charlie's or another distributor, does that pay for that? And does that really make sense? Those are the conversations that I think are important to have, especially in the Idaho kind of growing region, where it seems like from our experience, you're either super massive, potatoes and onions, or super tiny. And that middle ground seems to be, there's an opportunity there. I personally just don't know if we can make that pencil. And I think there's some probably experts on the call that can shed light on those challenges.
You know, one of the things, Matt, that just totally is popping up in me and kind of where we see, because we see ourselves being able to take the smalls. But if we became an aggregator of a bunch of smalls and put a brand, you know, around that, and Charlie's is backing up to our dock, and before you know it, you've taken all these smalls, and I don't know how to do that and how to say, well, what are the standards? I mean, sometimes I think when you have a lot of local produce, maybe your standards are actually, it's better, it's good, it's not as pretty and uniform consistently. Maybe it could, I don't know, I'm just guessing because I've seen some of this stuff, but that's a place of aggregation where it's like, now you can have a ton of smalls and income begins to flow to them, and they begin to grow up in that, but it doesn't slow Charlie's down in the scale that you guys deal with of going, oh my gosh, we just can't put that in our infrastructure to touch all these small little bases.
Right.
I love this so much. I have we have some time. We have about 10 minutes before I make us go to the next panel group. But I just wanted to say, I find this whole thing super fascinating. Like I said, it could probably be a several hours long conversation, especially if we augmented it with people like Tim, like Ryan from Sun Valley Mustard. One of the things that Marie just said in the chat is that the Idaho SBDC can help with the financial analysis of scale. But Tobe and Matt, what would you say is the biggest barrier getting producers who are already at that place of scale into the distribution market?
I can jump in. Because you're already at scale. I don't know if it's a huge barrier, but just understanding the minor ins and outs, like this is what a pack size is for this item. Everything's based on market pricing. So if you grow lettuce, you can't really grow lettuce here, but let's right now. But if you could grow it in Idaho in November or December, you could fetch $40 a case because the market's on fire because we're transitioning down to Mexico, right? And so that being said, in the middle of May, that box is $12, right? Probably doesn't pencil. And so understanding that it's a market driven economy. We will always pay a premium to a certain extent for a local product, but there's a ceiling, right? And these are like the realities of it. Like my personal feelings aside, I'm here to speak about like what's going to make you successful in our current food system, and it's understanding those things and not fighting them, but being accepting the situation that we've built over the span of 75 years. And so the pricing is probably number one. Logistics of what kind of box, pack size, those sort of things. That's probably number two. Things like that. It's not terribly complicated. We do require GAP certification, which is good agricultural practices. Tim Sommer can speak to that because they had to do some number of things to get in place. It's not expensive, but it's probably time consuming. I think that's on our side, probably the biggest barriers.
Tobe, do you have anything to add for that? Besides, wait, sorry, Tobe, I just want to say really quickly, I know that the SBDC can help businesses as well get GAP certified.
Oh, insurance. Yep. So it's a cost, and it's a little bit of a non-negotiable, particularly if you're dealing with like a leafy green. Food safety it's a thing, and there's some regulatory requirements, and so we require a pretty high umbrella policy that's standard in the industry. But again, if you're small, that hurts. If you're bigger, it's not a big deal because you already have the same cost spread across a lot more cases.
Perfect. Tobe, do you have anything to add?
No, I think our biggest challenges right now are just activating the market. You know, we're giving a lot of tours, a lot of just vision. We're just vision casting right now, because it's not here. I mean, part of me is like, well, do I start investing in greenhouses and start growing my own produce? I mean, I'll do that. But I think more sustainability is community driven. And so there's part of me that's like, well, I want to build a strong vertical food system that benefits our local economy. But right now I'm just, part of trying to light a fire for it. So.
Thank you both for the conversation, for the insight. I'm almost 100% certain there are a couple of you on this call that could add to this conversation. And I feel like it would be really appropriate to chime in at the Q&A section if you had a little bit more that you could add in this conversation. If maybe there are smaller producers that are looking to get to scale so that they could go to distribution, or if they're looking at Tobe's model and would love to start a food hub or a warehouse. Go ahead, Tobe.
And I would say that if there's anybody in that camp, however we could support, we want to be open book, because that's what we see, to localize and clean up our food supply. This isn't it's not a time to, position yourself for, I want to own my own little mountain. It's like, hey, how do we set this thing free? So.
Tobe, are you using or have you identified any successful food hubs in the country or in the world for that matter that you guys are modeling after? You're just kind of going at it yourself.
Yeah, I think we just kind of rested on like, well, what do we need? And so I've had some people that have been through a lot of food hubs, and a lot of the people have said, we've never seen anything like this. Which, the bakery, we used to have bakery. Part of what we also envision is inside our facility is education, because if you're going to decentralize from the current machine, you're going to need butchers, you're going to need bakers, you're going to need, you're going to need people to learn how to do this, because everything's become so centralized. So we've been, we've spent a lot of time, or, we see growing relationships with the education groups in our region to just see that multiply. So.
Thank you both, Tobe, Matt, for this conversation. I really appreciate your perspectives and your time today, for sure. Will you both be hanging out for the Q&A session?
For sure. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move on to market perspectives. Rich, are you ready to go? Rich from M&W Markets, a retailer here in the Treasure Valley. Are all your shops here only in the Treasure Valley?
I mean, we spread out to over by Bend, Oregon. We're over around Twin Falls, up in the, Adams County, Valley County. We're in the grocery store and convenience store business, and we have other interests that I won't discuss here, but primarily serving rural areas. So, I kind of look around the room, so to speak, here, and I see, more of a metro focus in terms of where people are doing business. I don't know everybody, but I'll try to keep things pragmatic, but I'd like to start abstract. And I think that following Matt and Tobe, I could have easily jumped in on your conversation, guys, because it really folds into what I'm looking for. And as a traditional grocer, we're an independent, multi-generation company. We come out of dairy farming. My office here was built in 1870. It's about 5 minutes from downtown Boise. It's an old barn. There's a couple silos in front of it, so I've got agricultural roots, and we do business where, agriculture is done, but typically, I'm friends with like Warren Farmer, I'm friends with the Watsons, couple big onion growers, right? So we get some of our onions from across the street over there in Nissa and Parma. And it's really nice. And then I talk with, so as far as co-ops go, I'm a member of Associated Foods. I saw you had Whit on there earlier from Atkinson's over in Ketchum in there, but, we aggregate our buying power with Associated Foods out of Salt Lake City. And, that kind of becomes a frustration for me, because, you talk about the way things are, and some background on me. I guess I'll just jump around. I went to school in Berkeley and got into food in Berkeley, and I worked in fine dining and owned a company, and we did some private dining up in the wine country and some fun stuff like that. So, I'm really interested in that kind of like farm to table perspective. At my house, we participate in a CSA. We know the people over at McIntyre really well. Conveniently, I've got a store in Marsing. We get all our meat, so there's this kind of thing that I deal with, where I want to provide the most local products that I can at my locations, and I want to be focused on health, and I want to get people away from the center store. But this is a challenge, where there's a lot of headwinds, and I think those are obvious, and we don't need to really get into them. But what I will say is kind of what I've thought about in terms of overcoming those headwinds, so part of it is, these big growing regions in commodity pricing. My customers, I'm doing business in rural communities, and a lot of these customers, they're working on agriculture and these things, but there's just the economy's been siphoned from for so long. It's because of the model that's been developed, and I think Tobe knocked it on the head when he said centralization. So if we take a perspective of centralization, anytime that happens, it's bad for people in general. It decreases freedom, which is paramount. And you could cap that over, food choices, you could, whatever you want to lay it over. It's just true. So I've got a good friend, side conversation, but a good friend of mine, I swam with him back in Berkeley, and he went and got his PhD down in Australia. And if you ever looked at a map of Australia, you'll notice that there's these main metropolitan areas, and the roads go out into the outback, but there's really nothing else there. There's these vast lands between these metropolitan areas. And what he discovered is that when you place the economic center and the political center of a region in the same location, that it siphons from all of the surrounding areas all of their resources. And so if you imagine, our maps, right? So when I go over to Nissa, Oregon, and I see this town, this once, booming town, there's good sugar production back in the day. Now it barely works. We've still got some good onion producing, but a lot of the farming's been consolidated. Like, the people in Nissa, they can't afford to go to the Boise Farmers Market. They're priced out, and they can barely afford to shop at my store. And then, who comes in? The dollar store. And you know what they do? They siphon more money out of the community, and the community thinks, oh, look, I can save a couple bucks over here, right? and it perpetuates the cycle, right? So I'm kind of painting this negative picture, and maybe it's not a beautiful picture, right? But I think it's important to understand where we're at currently, to understand where we need to go, right? So things are not good. I think everybody can get down with that. I think the farmers market's really beautiful, and a lot of this stuff that everybody's working on is really beautiful. But when we start talking about scale, right? And that's where Matt's position is coming from. And we do some business with Charlie's Produce, and they're great. And as far as, folks that are in his line of work, they're some of the best. And I think Matt would agree with me that, we're really interested in connecting local growers with our consumers. There's a price point, though. They're really price sensitive, so we need to consider, our farming practices and efficiencies that we're able to gain there. And I think that, one of the challenges we have is, really truly sustainable food. Often it takes more energy to produce, right? And more care and love. I mean, I see Ryan's on the call in Sun Valley Mustard, and I had kind of a tough email exchange with Ryan just recently. We've got and not to pick on you, Ryan, but I was so excited when Ryan called me. I hope I'm not going too far on time here. Keep an eye on it.
You're good. I got you.
Okay. Yeah, tell me, I can start rambling. I'd talk for an hour here, no problem. But so Ryan gets a hold of me, and I forget how Ryan gets a hold of me, but I love Sun Valley Mustard. One of my old friends from high school was involved in it early on, and it had kind of seen better days, and he picked it up and revitalized it. And I was like, whatever I can do to support that, I'm game. This stuff's great. We'll put it in all my stores. Where can you get it? So that kind of is going to make a point for me, right? Distribution. So distribution's an issue. I'm just small enough where I don't really have a good, strong distribution network internally. So I rely on producers, right? And that's where, whether you're working with Matt at Charlie's Produce or Tobe, I'd like to talk to you and see maybe we can work some stuff out. But if you can create distribution networks for yourself and consolidate, that's going to be a big deal, especially getting in with me. I mean, I can talk for Mark Ridley a little bit. He does have some distribution network, but more direct delivery stuff's going to help us out. I'm getting a little sidetracked off my mustard story. So I've got a store in Gooding, and it's just south of Sun Valley there, to the side a little bit, and we get some mustard going in it. And, I'm just going to be honest, the price point wasn't there for my customers. Maybe it was a value perception. They just don't understand how delicious each bite of this mustard is, and I think there's some things we could push on, but we had some struggles, right? So that's my next point, is price point. In my business, price is it's a big deal. If you're doing business with the co-op here, they've got huge margins, they're taking huge margins, their customers are willing to pay different. It's a different thing, their customers are focused on different things. But when you talk with me, my customers are just barely getting by. And I think those people are important to consider. I think that I'm glad that I can speak to that here right now, because, you mentioned food deserts and things like this. If guys like me weren't around, all they'd have was a dollar store, and I doubt they could get a fresh piece of meat there, maybe a banana or a rotten apple. But it's tough going in these rural communities, and so anything we can do to support that's really great. I don't want to paint too negative of a picture. We do business in places like Vail, Oregon, which is absolutely gorgeous, or Filer, it's near Twin Falls, and it's a beautiful community, so some of them are hurting. My son lives up in Ennis, Montana, and I know the local grocer there, Chris Gentry, really well, and she just doubled the size of her store. Her sales are up 40%. That community draws in a lot of economic benefit off of fly fishing and stuff like that, you know, and you see, you know, you're kind of either growing or you're dying, and you can see it out in these places. But, you know, as far as getting in the door with me, you can find me, you know, just get my email on our website, just shoot an email. I see all the inquiries that come through, and we always try to work something out. But I mean, the biggest thing is just distribution networks. If you can consolidate or work with folks that are already consolidating, you know, create networks, distribution networks is clutch.
Rich, as a small retailer with shops in different regions, do you see regional issues that maybe others aren't seeing?
Could you give me maybe an example just to prompt?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I could give you a very personal example. I went up to, I'm from the Treasure Valley. I live in Caldwell. I went up to Coeur d'Alene, and I was hearing from a lot of different producers concerns that I wasn't even aware of. So do you feel like the issues that are impacting the Sun Valley are different than those that are impacting small producers that are trying to get their produce to retailers, maybe in the Treasure Valley or in Twin Falls or even up in Coeur d'Alene?
Yeah, I think everywhere has its unique challenges. I mean, just as I mentioned, the different communities that we do business in, you know, like you've got every community, I think, you know, has its commonalities, but when you start diving deep into them, they've also got different issues that could be, you know, systemic and could be mirrored, you know, a couple states away, right? Like border towns in Oregon these days have cartel issues, right? Like that's a whole new thing, right? Grow operations, you know, in terms of cannabis and stuff like that, you know, that's not going to be going on in Idaho. So yeah, regionally, state to state, I mean, certainly red tape wise, it's a lot easier to do business in Idaho. I mean, even from the retail perspective, like the hoops I jumped through in Oregon, you know, kind of, I don't want to buy us another store in Oregon. I might, but we've got 4 over there and it's hard. We really like Idaho, and you know, I think that northern Idaho and southern Idaho could be 2 different states for sure, you know, and you've got a totally different customer up there. You know, if you look at beer sales, for example, you know, I mean, I think that we, like, to use an example, I'm good friends with Matt Bishop. He's got Cafe Mule Coffee, and you know, he created Draft Mule, which we were able to sell at our stores, you know, at a lower price point. I think it's about $3, you know, just 25%, maybe 30% less, and it rings under $10. And for my customer, that's a big deal. I think he developed it for Winco initially, but it just fit really good, and we sell it like crazy. They I think we put it in Kehi, so he's got pretty solid distribution out there. But you know, he started small, and anybody who's curious about scaling, he'd be a good guy to talk to. And he's getting into the sustainable agriculture side now. I bought a hog from him this last season. He grew some hogs, and so he's getting into that game too. But
Awesome.
Matt Bishop's a real good dude.
Awesome. That's great, Rich. Thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much for that perspective. You're our only retailer on this call, so I think it's really interesting to hear your perspective, especially considering you are in more rural locations. You going to stick around for the Q&A section after everybody does their panels?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I've been booked tight, so I can probably, if I jet at about 11:55, I think I'm going to be good. So I think I can get to the end there.
Great. Thanks, Rich. I really appreciate you.
You bet.
Dave, I'm going to tag you in now. Dave owns, I'm going to say Bitter Creek Ale, but Dave owns many, many restaurants down in downtown Boise. Dave has started nonprofits, including Fair Idaho. He sits on our board. He is the co-chair of our public affairs committee and a restaurant owner who deeply, deeply, deeply follows the local food to market model. Dave is steadfast in offering local food to his customers. Dave, I'm going to let you take it away because I know you're the expert.
Oh, I don't know about that. Thank you, Tammy. I just want to thank this whole group. This has been a really great conversation so far, and fun and educational. And I just think it's like this is like a who's who of people who are doing stuff in the local food movement. So thanks, Tammy, for putting this together. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. You know, I think that listening to a lot of the conversations about distribution, I probably won't be able to help myself but to dig into that a little bit. But I want to stay focused as a restaurateur. Tammy asked me to talk about what it's like, you know, how do we source locally, and what are the things that we do that make it work, and what are the challenges that we have. So I'm going to try to stay focused on that, not dip too much into distribution. You know, for me, I think as a restaurateur, it's not just about local products, it's about people. We care about our ag land. We care about the protection of that ag land so that we have this resource available to us. But I think where we've had the most success, where I've had the most success, and where our business has had the most success, is reminding ourselves it's about the people. And I'll give you a few examples of that. I think, you know, probably one of the first relationships I had as a restaurateur was with Clay and Josie at Peaceful Belly. And it was through them that, you know, I learned about the struggles of a small farmer, and my wife's family is a farming family. So I saw it on that side as well. And that's when it really hit. It's like, well, we can help if we just buy those things from them for our restaurant, which was a very naive perspective for me early on, but you know, it was, it was well intended. And I think Tim Summers, who's in this call, was one of those early relationships. I can remember Tim, you know, speaking passionately to me in the back of Bear Creek Kitchen about, you know, the herbs that he grows, and why we, you know, would be better off by just buying those directly from him. And it was Janie Burns and just her passion, and getting to know her, you know, on a very personal level, where, you know, it's like we had many events at her house, and my friend Lee Rice and many others. It is those relationships that really help us understand what works and what doesn't work. And I think it matters, because what farmers need more than anything is a dependable partner. You know, what hurts farmers is excited restaurateurs who want to buy their products and then don't really think it all the way through. And at a certain point, you know, build up expectations, which the farmer adjusts to, and then they drop them, they ghost them, they disappear. And I think many farmers speak to this a lot. And in fact, it's actually, I think, hurt relationships more than we care to admit, where I can't tell you how many farmers I've talked to that are like, yeah, I just really don't like working with restaurants, because, you know, they have this bad reputation for not following through. And there's lots of reasons for that. I would say that local is also relative. Those relationships for me are not just about, you know, my next door neighbors, Tim and Lee and Janie and Clay and Josie. We've reached out as a restaurant. We buy lots of products. We buy lots of them through people like Matt and others. But I think we try, if we can, to direct source those ingredients from other places as well. So for example, we have a relationship with a hazelnut farmer over in Oregon, and that's where we get all of our hazelnuts from. And I've been to that farm and seen it, and it's terrific. It's this wonderful family. We buy our salmon from fishermen who sell at our farmers market. And we've grown that program significantly over the last, I think, 10 years. We buy our maple syrup from a farmer in Vermont. And I think a lot of restaurants don't think about these things. They just sort of accept that they'll get those from their broadliner. But, you know, you can pick up a phone and get on the internet, find these folks, and actually sort of develop a relationship. And so for us, developing a relationship with Sugar Bush Farm in Vermont has been really fun, because I've learned a lot about maple syrup farming, and just the struggles that a lot of the maple syrup farmers have in Vermont, and just the terrific local food system that they have in Vermont. So it's like I really look forward to my conversations with, you know, people from their farm. So the other thing that relationships help with is solving problems. And a good one is Hillside Grain, which is now carried by Charlie's Produce. I developed a relationship with Brett years ago when we were talking about malt and their family's grain that they were growing and how they could adapt that farm. They were growing grain for Coors for decades. And as the kids took over, her and her brother, as they took over, wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful, but finding that lane was difficult. And early on, they thought maybe they would do barley malt and develop a malting facility, but they realized that was capital intensive and challenging. And so they decided to open up they bought a mill and started milling the flour. And we were super excited about it. And we bought some, but it took us a while to figure out how to use it, at least on a minimal level. And then distribution was this open-ended question. And the one thing I'll say about distribution is it's an incubation cycle. So a lot of the conversation that we've had today, I think, speaks to the gap in the market. You have, for farmers, farm stands and CSAs is kind of where they start. And that's that small to mid scale. They move into a farmer's market. Some people go from CSA farm stand to farmer's market and then go back to farm stand. We've seen that because those models are direct sales, and they're super important to making that farm work. And then you go to the next level, which is Charlie's Produce. And from there, you go up to Cisco and Shamrock, US Food Service. And so there's this huge gap in between. And that is where I think that the food hub model is the gap in the market. And that's one of the things that we've got a lot of active work on regarding that. This is what we need. This is the piece that's missing. And I personally feel like farmers markets are best positioned to fill that need. But with Hillside Grain, a good example of this was we were able to get to the point where we had enough traction. We worked for 3 years with Acme to a baking company to develop a burger bun for us that used Hillside Grain. And I think gave it enough volume to where I think it now makes sense at Charlie's. For a while there, it was a little sketchy for Charlie's to be carrying it because we couldn't keep that flour fresh. But now we've got products that use it. We use it for our pretzels and we use it for our burger buns. I don't know who else buys Hillside Grain. I'm guessing the co-op does and maybe a few others, but there's enough volume that now that product works through there. And that wouldn't have happened had we not had that relationship with Brett. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship.
I love that, Dave. Dave, I love that point. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. I feel like that's really important. I feel like that's at the crux of this whole, like, this is community. Dave, we have to move into the next section, but before we do that, I had an anonymous question come in here and I would have waited until the Q&A, but I think it's such an interesting question. I think that you have about 1 minute to answer it, Dave, and I know it's going to be really difficult for you to just answer this question in 1 minute, but it's such an important question. Like, as we've moved through getting, small businesses off the ground and into markets at farmers markets, and then into distribution with Charlie's or into a food hub like Happy Day. And then Rich was talking about having a small retailer have those products go into a small retailer and maintain that profit margin. Dave, in that, what is the I don't want to ask this question that way. I want to ask, as a restaurateur, you have to protect your ROI. How do you ensure producers are also getting a profit margin that works for them while maintaining your ROI?
Well, again, this is the point of the relationship, because I think the worst thing restaurants do is get excited about working with local produce. The National Restaurant Association publishes their list of hot trends, right? And those hot trends up until about 10 years ago were all these various hipster things. But over the last 10 years, we've watched those slowly become all locally focused. And today their top 10 trends are almost all local, other than some sustainability things. And so you've got restaurants very motivated to put local all over their menu. But the reality is it's hard to do. And for all the reasons we talked about here. And so I would say that, first of all, there's probably a lot of fraud because of that. But I think there's also a lot of expectations that are just not realistic. And I think the relationship is super important because we have to figure out what can work. And there's products that work really well and products that don't. Proteins are difficult for a lot of reasons, and we need to work on that. That's a gap. But, for us, potatoes works really well because we hand cut our fries. And And we didn't hand cut our fries before we started buying potatoes from Mike Keith and Nate Jones, but today we do. And that product, even though it's almost 4x what we can buy it for from the raw potato from Shamrock, or maybe even Matt, we can, and probably, am I right on those numbers, Matt? It's about 4x the difference in price. It works because we're making French fries. So at the scale we're doing it. So all of a sudden we've created a nice market for a farmer. And I think that's what is important, is to find your lane. You can't do everything, but what are the lanes that work?
Perfect. Matt, I'll let you answer the question, then we'll move into the next panel.
I'll pull it up, tell you exactly what we're paying, but it's going to be around $12 for a 50-pound case, which, like, no food should be that cheap. But again, this is, and Dave brings up a really good point. Like, when you're looking at the plate cost, like, your protein's your number one, and it doesn't really matter how much your fries cost, because it doesn't overall impact your food cost, because it's so cheap to begin with. So that's a really good one that you can pay a little bit more for. And
I'll give you an example. Every chef we bring in wants to put duck on the menu, and we all love duck. And Tim's laughing in the background. I'm like, all right, I can get you a farmer that can raise duck for us, but it's not what you think. Like, we can't sell it. We can't put duck on the menu for $75 and make it work. It's like not going to sell. So I would much rather us, work with that same farmer to raise chickens for us, and you'll be shocked at the price of those as well. But it's like, we can find a lane for that. We can't find a lane for duck on the menu, but it's a foodie thing. Like, every chef wants to have duck on the menu. So that's an education process we go through with our chefs.
So interesting. Thank you both. Thank you, Rich, Dave, and Matt, for jumping in on that, just to talk about ROI really quickly. Dave, you gave me the perfect segue into Tim and Tyler's section here. Tim is from Purple Sage Farms. You've been called out here, I think, in every single panel, if not certainly a couple. And Tyler, don't forget to take your speaker or your microphone off mute, but I want to just quick give an intro to Tyler. We partner with Tyler for a software that he's created with the help of local farmers and ranchers. We house a link to this software on our website, as he'll talk about it. I'm not going to even try to do this all. I'll let you guys hear from them, but we don't profit in any way from this partnership. And I just want to make that really clear, as this is it is our hope that it is a tool to help get producers to market, but in no way is Fair Idaho profiting from a software that Tyler and his team created, or the other farmers and ranchers helped him create. So with that little caveat, I'm going to let Tim and Tyler, you guys can take it away. I'll watch your time for you. Feel free to just touch on whatever you'd like to talk about navigating market access and future opportunities. You guys can take it away.
Well, I guess I can start. I guess was a new person seeking access to a market for a specialty food operation that we wanted to start, but that was 37 years ago. But here's another reality in that, is that you end up doing it every 5 years. It kind of seems things go away, they come, you have new opportunities, new challenges. So you're constantly going to be going through this. If you're wanting to start, just realize that you have to be flexible enough to do it. And here's how I've really thinking about listening to people I know on here, Matt and Dave, and these people are saints, and you do have to find partners like that to get to those next steps as you enter into this area. And I'll talk more about them later, but I thought the first thing to say is that we are in a consolidated and entrenched industry in food. And there's a lot of that perception of food being local is just foreign to most of the food that's available here in this valley and across the country. And I think that we import 90% of the food that are consumed in this state, and 90% of our ag product leaves the state. So we're just not oriented to things being grown here. And I thought that that's what I wanted to be, though. And I think it's is still quite possible. One thing that's important about our operation, we started a long time ago. I had to work to create an organic certification program, and certifications like that are really critical to your having something to offer that isn't going to be easily available through large distributors and the larger food system. And Matt mentioned the GAP certification, and that's quite a grueling process, and farms our size typically don't do that, but it's something that you should consider, and it's a requirement for someone like Matt. So that's a high hurdle that I would suggest most of farms entering into this, they're not necessarily going to start there. That's just going to something they're going to be growing into. I thought too that a lot of my focus has been on small size, medium sized farms. That's most of the opportunities that exist in agriculture have really drifted to the large operations. And so I've thought that and grew up in the medium sized farm scale. So I know about how good it is and how its products are better, what they grow is better. And it's better for the farmers, but it's a lot of the food system does not go in that direction. So we wanted to be part of that. And I think now being involved in something like the Boise Farmers Market and turning that into a significant resource for entry-level farms has been, that's a real blessing for all of us. It's both it helps by my having access to all kinds of people coming into one place at one time, and then we gain credibility by being involved in such a good organization. And then we bring in other farmers as they want to come in. We bring in people that are used to or needing access, and or getting the specialty food processors that are involved in our market, getting them to also buy local raw ingredients. That's an important function that we offer, just getting to see that people, that they do consider that that's important and an attribute of a valuable attribute of the product that they're going to make as well. And I think too, even as you're, if I'm thinking about small farms and small, medium-sized farms, you cannot be a commodity producer and survive. You cannot. You have to use all the attributes of the people that are on this panel. They're in business. And so as a small farm ag producer, you have to do the same thing. And you have to be highly concerned about the finance and the management, but also the marketing. And this is something very different for a lot of agriculture, that they're not marketing and sales oriented. But that's something that's very important in this aspect, because you're going to have to build, like Dave was talking about, you're going to be building relationships and long-term relationships. You're going to need to provide the things that those people need. They become your boss in essence, because they want you to have constant availability, constant quality, consistent quality, and to communicate and be visible before them. It takes that effort. I think about
Tim, I have a question really quickly, because I just want to keep us on time here. When you first started out, did you start out at the scale that you're currently at?
We grew into it. Yeah.
Where did you start? How did you first get to market?
I started by going and talking to restaurants. That was our first thing. And then because I knew that there were, in Boise of all things, there were a few restaurants like Peter Schatz or the Blue Note Cafe, a few they're not around anymore, but they were kind of leading edge, and they had some interest into it. Then I got in with Quality Produce, and they were interested in distribution and into the Atkinson's markets in Sun Valley and into the Boise Co-op. And so then, because most of any product that I grew was coming in from California, and buyers, like the produce companies, they required a restaurant buy 5 cases in order to meet a minimum to ship that in from California. So I could do it within, 30 minutes before I left back to Boise where I was going to deliver. So we had good availability. And in starting, we went and found the places that would have some affinity for our kind of product. And we did this lucky thing of picking a product to grow primarily fresh herbs and fresh greens with a lot of flavor. And doing that because California had a hard time at that time at making that available in our area.
I
So it
love
was a
that.
piece of fortune that I didn't realize.
Mhm.
And now all those rascals are putting stuff on Matt's truck and running it up here quite easily. So, and because some big operations have realized that those are excellent product categories to be involved in. And so they have I'm up against giant operations and transportation.
Yeah, I get that. Tim, when you and I first met, I'm going to segue into Tyler's conversation really quickly about when you and I first met, Tim, was it like not just last month or something like that? You came to me because you hadn't seen that I was the one that said, if small producers are trying to get to market, we have an app for that. I screamed across the room. Dave was in the room, and I said, "We have an app for that." I'm here with an answer. I have a tool here to help you. And you didn't know it was me. You and I had never met. You came over to me and you were like, some ding dong screamed out at this food summit, "We have an app for that." And no one has an app that's solving these problems. Nobody's got that. So I love that perspective. I have learned even more in just the month since you started that. I told you, I promised you that we had what I hoped would be a fledgling solution here. It's just the very beginning of what I see as being a solution here in Idaho. So Tim, thank you for that insight. Are you hanging around for the Q&A?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to segue over here to Tyler. Tyler, you are I'm just going to let you go because I already screamed into crowds that we have the answer. You go ahead.
Great. Thank you for that introduction, Tammy. So like Tammy mentioned, I am the CEO and founder of RecoHub.com. I've met many of you before. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's spelled R-E-K-O, not like R-I-C-O. It's not Rico Indictments. It's RecoHub.com. Rico is a Finnish word that means local consumption, and that's the core of what we are doing, is shifting the pendulum back from non-local food towards local food, primarily through direct-to-customer sales, getting small and medium-sized farms in front of customers that want to purchase directly from them. And we're also working on a B2B integration so that restaurants and local grocery stores that want to purchase from these local farmers can do so as well. So in context of the entire market problem right now, if you're familiar with the grocery space, there's $1 trillion spent on food every single year in the United States. Less than 0.5% of that is on local food. And the reason why is there's an extreme amount of friction in the locally produced food environment. That friction exists in 4 primary ways. And if you can solve for these 4 friction points, then customers almost never have an issue with price or with anything else. But those 4 friction points are discovery. We've heard a lot of people talk about that. I've had to go out and do a bunch of Google searches, wasn't sure where to find people. The next one is transactions. How do I buy from you? Do I send you a PayPal? Do I bring cash? Is there some other way? Third is availability, customers trying to figure out when and where your product is available. And then 4th is fulfillment. How do I get your product? Do I go to your farm stand? Do I meet you at the farmer's market? Do you deliver it to my doorstep? Is there some other way I get it? And RecoHub.com in its current state, we launched at the beginning of this year, and it's been growing at a tremendous rate. Each month, we're growing about 30 to 50% month over month. And it solves the first 3 problems beautifully right now: discovery, transaction, availability. Lets customers easily see what you have to offer, how much you have, and quickly purchase it online. The last step, fulfillment, there's also some good solutions for that within RecoHub by creating Rico Drops, which is where a group of local producers will get together, decide on a certain day and time of the week to meet in a central location where their customers can meet and cross-pollinate sales. The person selling local honey benefits from the person selling local beef as their customers realize they can get all of their groceries now in the same area. Also, next year, we'll be launching an option for delivery fulfillment. So if you want to offer localized delivery, we'll have tools for you to do that as well. The best thing about it is the software is completely free to use for local producers. We manage the payment processing side, which we upcharge to the customer. That's where we make our money. But for producers, there's no monthly cost, there's no transaction fee, there's no commission on sales or anything like that. And what's been beautiful about this, as we've partnered with Fair Idaho, as we've worked with farmers all across Idaho, we're in Idaho, Texas, Utah. We're starting to get some traction in California and Colorado as well. But previous to this, as a small or medium-sized farmer, in addition to spending your time running the farm, you also had to become an expert in building and maintaining a website, and an expert in launching online advertising, pay-per-click campaigns, and an expert in online search engine optimization and integrating payment processors and all of these other pieces, which quite frankly, it's not realistic for a local farmer to be an expert in all of those things, or to hire all of those things out and pay market rate for those types of positions. So using the RecoHub software lets you focus on doing what you do best, what you love, which is growing food and providing it to your local communities, while we take care of the rest of it, having an online presence, all of your payment processing done, SEO optimization, all of that's done for you. And one of the last thing I'll end on here that is just a little bit of an anecdotal story, and one of the reasons we love doing this is it helps build self-reliance in local communities. It's amazing as I've gone out, there's been a big theme among customers who are interested in using Rico to find farmers, and this idea of becoming self-reliant. And really, if as much as it would be incredible if an individual could become completely self-reliant on their own, the reality is we live within societies, and what's most important is that those communities and societies become self-reliant, so that, and Tobe had a really interesting story a few weeks back. He was talking about seeing the writing on the wall back in the early COVID days of, shoot, we need to get a whole bunch of food in. But having those self-reliant communities allows you to have a buffer against any type of global supply chain crises or things like that. So we started a new Rico drop in St. George, Utah, just about 4 or 5 months ago. Brought together a bunch of local producers that were really struggling to get any type of traction in their sales, and now we have there's a local raw milk producer as an example. They were doing almost no sales at all before. They sell $400 or $500 a week now in raw milk, and I think they just have a 1 or 2 cow operation. It's a very small operation, but suddenly they have an economically viable opportunity to get to market without having to go out and pay somebody a few $1,000s to build a website and to do marketing for them and help push them into the limelight, because they have the software tools that takes care of that, and it makes everything else very easy. So thanks for letting me be here, Tammy. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Oh, thank you so much, Tyler. I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of questions. I've been using you as one of my pitches, when I give speeches at different locations, or when I talk to potential new members. I always say, we have these as tools. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not a producer. I do not know what all the producers, the restaurants, the retailers, all of you guys have different perspectives, and I could never, ever, like, we started this whole conversation, I could never come up with a solution that fits every single one. But I think that in this story of retailers, of producers, of restaurants coming together, Tyler, this software is such a great start for some producers that are like, I'm growing this food in my backyard. I'm not excited about throwing all this away, but we can't possibly eat 42 cucumbers and 700 tomatoes. We've got to do something with this produce. And then they try the Rico software and realize that they do have a potential to scale up. They can start at the Rico, go to the farmers market, do both at the same time, then meet restaurant owners, then meet, small retailers, and it just keeps going from there.
Yeah, that absolutely. And one last thing I'll say is for that example you gave, the software lets you integrate with everywhere that you're currently selling. So if you want to add an option for customers to purchase on your RecoHub profile and then pick up from the farmers market, they can do that. If you have 3 different farm stands or different drop locations you run, you can do that. You can set up bulk pricing for restaurants. So when they visit your profile, they can select the restaurant option to get bulk orders with special discounts for that. It's all available within the Rico software.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Okay, so now we have all of our panelists hanging out with the exception of one who had to go. And I do want to apologize. Whit from Atkinson's was intending to be here today, but he was not able to come today. Luckily, we had a robust panel. So that worked out just fine. I don't have any more anonymous questions in here. You guys are welcome to ask anonymous questions to me. I will ask them for you. Or you guys are all welcome to raise your hand or send a chat message if you have any questions for the panelists, and we can hang out for as long as that takes, and then we can just end this whole little roundtable. The roundtable is being recorded and it will be on our website once it's done. So that with that said, go on. You guys can go ahead and ask questions. And if there's not any, I'll ask them. Alrighty. I don't see any hands and I see no questions in my chat just yet. So one of the questions I have, like I said, I'm not a producer. I did a summer garden. My dogs ate the whole thing. I could have never even have taken it to Rico or taken it to a farmer's market. They had it before we were even ready to pick it. This roundtable is put together in the hopes that we can help educate producers who are at the very beginning of their process. Now they know that they can go to the SBDC for help. They know they can go to the farmer's market. They know they can go to Rico. They have small retailers. They have restaurants that they can be supported through. They have food hubs. They have warehouses. They have so many things. If you were to say distributors, sorry, I just forgot about Charlie. Sorry, Matt. If you were to give the one piece of advice, like each of you can give one piece of advice for producers that may or may not be listening to this recording, what would be your piece of advice? I'll call in each one of you guys so you guys can give your little piece of advice. I'll just try to remember to go in order here really quickly according to how we did the panel. So Marie, if you could give one piece of advice to a new starting producer, what would it be?
Know your numbers. So the numbers matter. And I think that is one thing that people forget. It helps you get out there in the marketplace, but it also helps you scale and also know where you want to, what are you building? What do you want to do?
Such good advice. Tobe, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, at this stage, I don't know if I have a lot of advice other than I'm trying to learn about what growers and producers are doing so that I can kind of figure out our business model to best allow them to come into the market. So other than I would say the other piece of it is community, like be part of this, like an organization like FAIR. I'm on a number or a few other groups, but it is the community that we're all learning from. And if you're not, if you're by yourself, I just think the task is too hard to do it alone. So
I agree for sure. Matt?
Marie took mine. You got to know your numbers, meaning look at a long-term feasibility. Is this going to work? Whatever scale you're going to do. So, but I'll use another one. Grow something that you love to grow, that grows well. I really appreciate what Dave said. That was not the Dave that I worked with so many years ago. He about supporting industries outside of say our 150-mile radius, because things grow well here and things don't, right? And so really understanding what what our climate needs, and supporting a berry grower in Oregon is okay, west of the Cascades.
Definitely. Thanks, Matt. I will have a question for you in a minute, Matt, so keep hanging out. Rich, in a minute or less, Rich, can you answer this question? Do you have one piece of advice for a new producer?
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. Just make it easy on the buyers. So I'm just speaking from the perspective of a traditional grocer. Just make it easy on the buyer. Your buyers do want to buy your product, but we need consistency. We need reasonable pricing. And, at my level, you got to self-distribute or consolidate distribution, which sounds like people are talking about.
Great, Dave. You're muted, Dave. Don't forget to unmute. We want to hear your answer.
My one piece of advice, know when everybody else is growing eggplant and try to grow yours slightly different timing.
I love it. That needs to be repeated. Grow things at different times.
Yeah.
Love it. Tim.
One thing that we did is we had a planning process long before we actually moved back to Idaho and started our farm. And that, you know, practicing on paper is a lot easier on you than kind of diving into the pool and finding out it's too deep. So we, you know, spent that time. My wife brought to us a something called a MAP, a management action plan that she got from a women's business conference at Penn State. And we started meeting regularly and doing the research together and you know, designing who we would be, what we thought the opportunities were. And of course, when you start there, you still don't know the answers. And when you plunge into reality, it's going to be a little different. But at least you're a little more equipped, and you have that longer term vision about what you want to be, and it gives you you know, ideas about where you ought to be spending your time.
Thank you, Tim. That was great. Tyler, do you have any input for new producers?
Yeah, what I think would be the most important thing is reducing customer friction. The more customers have to think about making a purchase, the less likely they are to make that purchase. So if you think about the way that when you're shopping on Amazon, they've simplified it down to one-click checkout. You're on the product page, you click it, it's added to your cart, purchased on its way. You never have to think about it. And if, you know, whether you're using the Rico software, whether you're building your own website or doing something else entirely, the way that I would think about it is what are the sticky points that my customers are getting stuck at, and how can I reduce that friction to make it easy for them so they don't even have to think about it. And that's the thing that we've seen by far has a dramatic lift on producers' sales.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm going to just throw in an answer here too. Not that anyone has asked me for my opinion at all, but I will give it here. I think that I would echo what Tobe had to say about community. That is, like I said before, that's the prevailing theme across all the regions when it comes to producers, when it comes to restaurants, I mean, every single sector from field to fork, the community is where they get advice, where business owners get advice. It's where they get their consumers. It's where they get their neighbors, and it's where they get their word out. So if I could give any one piece of advice to a new producer, I would say, come to Fair Idaho. You do not have to be a member to email someone, get the help you need, and we'll connect you with the community that you need, and then join. And then you can join Fair. Elizabeth, over at Thomas Cattle Co., you have a question. I would love to hear it.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm Elizabeth with Thomas Cattle Company, and thank you all for sharing the information you've shared today. We've been on our journey for about 4 years, and I always tease that I thought I was getting into the beef business, but I'm actually in the logistics business. That's, I think, the majority of the time that's spent. I did have a couple specific questions. For Rico, what does the output look like? Because one of my concerns and challenges is there's many ways for people to order and buy, but with having a small team of 4 people, I have to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. So there's, you know, FromTheFarm.us is a new platform that is coming out, trying to connect people with protein. Rico is connecting people to buy local. And as a business owner on my side of things, I have to think of how does all of our inventory flow together? How do we make sure our team of 4 people can still meet the needs of this? So I was just curious, what does the output look like when orders come in? Like, how would it flow into our existing operations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I'm aware of from the farm.us.io. I forget which domain they have now. So I can't speak specifically to them, but for Rico, when you set up your operation, say, and I don't know if you guys have multiple different drop locations or if it's all come pick up from the farm, whatever it is. If you set that up in Rico, so you have 5 drop locations and a farm stand pickup, you will set your inventory for the items and it syncs across all locations. So if for some reason one location just gets real hot and that's the one that people are buying from, it will deplete the overall inventory so you don't accidentally oversell by having stuff that shows up as available at the farmers market when you're sold out because of your drop locations or your farm stands. For order management, as orders come in, you will be notified via text message, via email, via push notification in the software. And each of those orders just show up. It will show you the day and time that they ordered for, the location, and then you have an opportunity to confirm or cancel those orders in the event something comes up and you can't fulfill it. And as a cattle operation, I'm guessing you price a lot of your items by the pound, or maybe it's already all pre-weighed out into exact amounts. But if you don't have exact weights yet and it's priced by the pound, it also gives you the option to use approximate pricing, so a customer can place the purchase and it will let them know, hey, it will be approximately 20 pounds, maybe a little more, a little less, or approximately if they're doing maybe like a half cow, it'll be maybe 200 pounds more or less. After they place the purchase, you can then go weigh their package of meat, or wait until you have the hang weight of the cow and then type in the final weight, and it will charge the customer at that time based on the actual weight of what you are providing for them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my other questions, I guess general for the whole group, is I think one challenge for producers, and many have spoken to this, and one thing we've definitely experienced is, where it really gets down to us is a cost per pound to produce, and that includes all of our overhead, all of our transportation costs. And I always say, like, we're in the gray area. We're not small, but we're not huge. We don't have systems built for logistics. So a lot of times we're paying LTL freight on things to go from Idaho to Montana or Idaho to Oregon. I was just curious of any resources. It sounds like many of these things are being created. But once we're outside of that Boise market, we're about an hour south of Boise. If anyone knows of any other kind of co-op type transportation that does allow more cost-effective delivery for northern Idaho and some of those options, because for us, we'll move, say, 200 pounds of product and the pallet is $250. That's adding a pretty significant chunk to your cost to get it there. And we're trying to find ways to send more at a time and have the producer, the buyer, use it over a longer period of time, so you do have some lifespan with proteins. But that would be something I'd be interested in if there are options like that out there, because that is one of the closest things that I watch is our transportation costs, because we're not going to fill a whole semi at this point. We're not to that scale.
Anyone that has the answer can feel free to jump on in, because I certainly do not have this answer.
I'll speak to one thing real quick that and this may not work for your operation, Elizabeth, but I've seen other beef producers who are using Rico set up their operation like this for more of the shipping thing. Is what they'll do is they'll set up a drop location, for example, in northern Idaho, and they'll set that up to be a drop that happens once every 3 months or once every 6 months, or however long they think they'll need to build up a large enough quantity of orders so that they can get those freight costs down, because they can, instead of going up every time you get an order, you wait for 10 orders to pile up, and then you schedule the truck or deliver it yourself. So I'm not saying it's the most elegant way to do it, but I have seen people do that with some success, where they just schedule drops that are semi-annual or quarterly. And when the customers make the purchase, of course, they know, hey, this is going to be out in right now. If you're ordering today, it's going to be in June that drop is going to happen, and so you might be able to get some freight costs down that way.
Okay, yeah, this would be more for wholesale, where we're delivering on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, larger pound. Yes, thank you.
So one of the things that just, Elizabeth, that kind of drew out of me was when we had a little bit of a summit at our warehouse or distribution facility, and some other hubs came, and they were talking about this kind of cross sharing between hubs, and with playing off of what Dave was talking about, some regions are going to be better at growing other things. And I almost just see these food hubs becoming like these aggregators for what's growing there, and us creating a pipeline to be able to move things back and forth. It's not, it's a smaller distributions pipeline than we'll say a Cisco or a US Foods, but that's what we kind of see. Like, in order for the smalls to grow, it can't grow in the same system. So anyway, that just kind of drew out, I just wrote it down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to lean in on those other food hubs to just maybe strategize and talk through. But the other thing was the planning that Dave mentioned was like, oh my gosh, I just saw like this whole map, like, oh my God, we got to start drawing this out. When do they plant? When do they harvest? What's the need?
Well, and this isn't, a new idea. So we've been
Right.
dealing with this for 25, 30 years. And it's like, I do think that, technology solutions are important, but what we know is the core problem is aggregation. And in other regions, you see the development of food hubs, especially in states where I think you've just got more access to land grant universities that have more capacity to support regional food hubs. You've got Department of Ags that are supportive of regional food hubs. In Idaho, it's been a tough go. That funding model is not there, but we are working on our food hub here in Boise. And from that, all of a sudden you can build a localized distribution model. And if you can imagine having regional food hubs, this is what happens in other states. Those food hubs begin to connect with each other. So you see this in Michigan and Minnesota and Vermont, and even to some extent over in Washington. And I think, I'm excited about what you're doing, Tobe, because I felt like both the Moscow market area, Lewiston market, Lewiston, Moscow, and I think the Ketchum-Haley area are ripe to be able to have some kind of an aggregation center. And as we get ours going in Boise, then it really just boils down to how do we coordinate, trucks. But food hubs, by and large, have been unsuccessful. And we've had a number of those models in Boise because they collapse on themselves because of the infrastructure overhead. And so Idaho's Bounty was one that, is sort of a case in point where many of us, paid the price for trying to lift up this thing with good intention, but it was ahead of its time and also poorly structured. That's why I think farmers markets are the perfect vehicle to be able to design in a food hub. But then you have to have the whole business model to go with it. And I think that's when the technology really then helps, because then we've got those aggregation points where, you get rid of all the inefficiencies of every farmer having to deliver to various sites that they don't have time to do.
Yeah, I was thinking on the farmers market when I was hearing that conversation, it actually went with what Marie was talking about, but it's like, okay, all these small businesses have come in, but as the leader of the market, you're like, hey, these are other resources. Like, we want to begin this education process with you to help you scale beyond our market. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to stop, but this is the incubator for the continued growth. So to just provide those type of materials or those opportunities or just the relational connections to help those farmers grow. It's probably already happening unintentionally, but it could be very intentional in the process.
Elizabeth, too, I think that's a question I hear everywhere. That is the question, right? So maybe that's a topic we could do another roundtable on, or maybe you could send me an email and I can push it out to our members and see what kind of responses we get back. I think it would be really interesting to hear if our members from other regions had different questions.
Well, and even if it's two producers that are sharing a truck, your cost is a percentage less than you started with. So that's a step in the right direction. And, it's challenging. And one of the parts that in Idaho, especially, there's not that many options, especially for cold storage. That's another challenge that we continually run up against.
Right.
And we don't have the infrastructure and funding to build our own right now or to do those things. So I really appreciate that information and feedback from everyone. And yeah, we're open to options because we want to continue to be successful. One thing I was gonna mention, I think someone earlier mentioned like scaling from small to large. I think one thing that the broadliners or distributors could be more helpful at is not treating someone that's new to the process as though they should know everything in the process. It's obviously a steep learning curve when you haven't done distribution before and you don't know where to start, and so I think if you are a company that says you're going to support local and you're going to build these processes, you also have to recognize that comes with a learning curve for those people who do want to scale, because we work with great partners like Dave and his team, our team that we work with, that we have regular conversations. They're very open. If there's a product we can help you move, let us know what that is. We've also had other people that they don't want to talk to you because you don't know X term or what the standard is for this. And so I think when people say they want to support local, it comes with more than just buying that product at that specific point in time. It's just a piece of feedback that I can give that we've experienced. We're trying to be as quick of learners as possible, but we are doing it as well. And so we're not always going to know. So those ones that really do take time to teach and give resources have been really valuable for our relationships.
I think that's really poignant feedback. And I have so many things to say about it. We have so little time, but I think that send me an email. We'll have more conversation about this. I do have a question really quickly for Matt. And then if you had anything you wanted to add really quickly to Tom or to Elizabeth over at Thomas Cattle Co.'s statement, I feel like that would be appropriate, but let me ask this question really quickly. It comes from Ed. Ed is also our grant manager here at Fair Idaho. He's a contract employee. So if anybody has questions about grants, they can send me an email and I will refer on over to Ed. So Ed asks, market pricing is generally reflective of supply and demand on a national basis, so volatile. Is contract pricing for this season a better option for Charlie's and a local producer? Is there a formula that you would suggest for contract pricing, meaning the margin for all concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the short answer is yes, for sure. I think we would rather know going into a season what to expect. I know the farmer would appreciate that as well. And we contract with bigger growers as well. We go into the season with Purple Sage and say, hey, this is let's agree on a price here. So that's definitely our preference. I wouldn't say there's a formula. As much as we act like we know what we're doing, it's pretty it's a conversation to see what's going to work for you. Here's what the market's been doing. So let's find a number that we can all agree works. We're reasonably transparent, especially with local producers about the where the costs are. I just think it's really important that we educate each other on the economies of it all. So here's what the FOB pricing is. Here's generally what we're going to put freight on. Here's the margin range that we're looking for. So here's your cut. It's kind of what we're gonna talk through. Yeah, these aren't market secrets. This is like how to generally run a distribution business.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think that knowledge is very helpful to anybody that's growing or providing, to know the backstory of like, okay, then what does my scale need to look like? How do I shoulder? Okay, that's going to be the margin I get. What do I need to produce so they don't underproduce, and then fall out, it's not sustainable, or they don't have unreasonable expectations of a wholesale market, which sometimes we get. I'm like, listen, you may need a retail market to balance out your costs. You may need a little bit more, that's where you're going to do your farmers market or a Rico hub, as well as try to enter into a wholesale market.
Thank you both. And thanks, Ed, for the question. Did you have a follow-up? We have 3 minutes and I will keep everybody on time. Perfect. Okay. I want to thank, we have one more message. Hold on 1 second before I call it. Sorry, this was for me. Shannon, I got you. actually send me an email. Shannon, send me an email. My email, in case anybody needs it, is Tammy, Tammie at fairidaho.org, but it is also on our website. Shannon, send me an email and I will connect you with Ed, who can help you with that grant information. We also have an membership interface. It's new, it's been newly rolled out, so I wouldn't say it's super active today. I'm hoping you guys all use it. Marie, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you. If you log into your membership interface, there is a forum inside the membership interface, and in that forum, there is a topic for grants, and it's a list of grants that are available today. Also, ISDA has a list. You can lean on them for that list, and there U of I has a list. There are a lot of different organizations that have lists of grants should you be looking for a grant. To wrap this up, I just want to say I'm so deeply thankful for this conversation. Every conversation that I hear like this just augments my understanding of where FAIR needs to be in helping our members, but also how there's so many more questions and issues than I as one person or we as FAIR as one organization could ever solve. It's really going to take this community coming together. It's really going to take neighbors helping out neighbors. We have 1 more minute. Does anyone have anything else to add before I let you all go for the afternoon?
If anyone needs to contact me, or should I post it here, or Tammy, do you want to put that
I can
information out?
connect you. Absolutely. Yes, I connect you often. I just connected you. Did I connect you earlier? I know Boise River Lamb reached out to me earlier this week for connections. You're already connected with them. I'm always connecting people, so people can reach out to me. I will happily connect you so that they can. Dawn over at ISDA really quickly wants me to note that they will be sending out their newsletter today with an exhaustive list of grants and funding opportunities. Dawn, send me an email. I'd like to be able to resend that out as well. ISDA is an incredible partner of FAIR Idaho, so if there's information that they have and we don't have, I promise to get everybody connected with them as well. Wrapping this up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is going to be on our website. This is recorded. It'll be on our website so other people can see it and gain the insight that we all gained today. I'm really thankful for you guys all. Please do check out our website because we have tools like this all the time that are coming up. These are going to be quarterly. This was the first one in the quarter. There's going to be one again in March. It'll be about operational supports for small businesses. Thank you guys all for your time, genuinely. And I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, Tammy.
Bye, guys.